All right, now I'm ready.
This afternoon on Real Talk with Bethany's friends, we're joined by someone who, in many ways, has grown up right alongside us, just at a much faster pace than most. Caden is young, but we've had the privilege of knowing him since he was even younger, like high schoolish. And over the past 5 years, there's probably no one outside of our immediate family who has had a closer, more consistent window into our lives, whether he wanted it or not, than he has. From time in our home to days on the road and hours in airports to conferences, camps, countless events behind the lens, Caden has been there, not just present, but invested, trusted, a constant for every one of us, Evelyn and Maverick included. What's been remarkable is watching that consistency translate into a body of work that is both disciplined and uniquely his own. Caden is the founder and creative director of his own media business, where he leads projects from concept through delivery, capturing, editing, and producing visual stories for a wide range of clients. His work is grounded not just in instinct, but in technical excellence. He's certified in Adobe Premiere Pro, Photoshop, and video design, holds a Part 107 remote pilot certificate, and brings a deep understanding of lighting, composition, and post-production to everything he creates. I'll just note here that Patrick and I are snobs about all things media. And when we have questions, they go to Caden first. He's also operated independently at scale, traveling across the country to photograph and film major youth conferences, producing daily recap videos that don't just document moments, but help shape the experience itself. More recently, he stepped into a full-time role in content production, filming, editing, and publishing across platforms while managing podcast production end-to-end and analyzing performance to refine and strengthen engagement. What stands out most isn't just what he can do, it's how he chooses to grow. Caden consistently puts himself in environments where he doesn't have all the answers, where the expectations are high, the margin for error is small, and the opportunity to improve is real. He leans into that tension, he seeks it out, and that posture of humility, discipline, and forward momentum is what continues to shape both his work and his character. Today, we're talking about mentorship, what it looks like, what it requires, and how it shapes us over time. And I can't think of a better voice for that conversation than someone who has not only received mentorship, but is also offering it to others. And I'm excited to hear about his thoughts. So, Caden, I'm really glad you're here. Let's get into it.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. So when you hear the word mentorship, what season in life comes to mind for you?
What season in life comes to mind? Well, the first thing right off the bat is, like you were saying earlier, when I first met the Hardwigs, I was at a conference, a youth conference, and I ran into Patrick and I showed him a couple of my photos and I was like, hey, I see you have a camera. I have a camera. I'm not nearly as good as you, but I have thoughts, questions, ideas, and things that I would like to bounce off of you from time to time. Is that chill? And he said, that's totally chill. So, I mean, not to get too romantic about me and your husband, but one thing led to another, and he started sharing all of his life experience with me, basically, what he had learned from doing media for other people, and his mistakes, his accomplishments, and really just gleaned from him off of that. So I would say the period of my life was definitely in high school where mentorship comes to mind. Not that I'm not still being mentored 24/7, but that's definitely the season of the biggest impact in terms of mentorship.
I think one of the things that's like, I love having this conversation with you because I know you pretty well. And you're like, no, you don't. You're like, all right, well, that really throws off my premise here.
Well,
But like, one of the things that I think is unique about you is like, there is so much to learn in the spaces you occupy. Like, this is not a constant of like, here is the need and here is the tech. Like, the tech is always changing, the need is always changing, the platforms are always changing, the algorithms are changing. And like, I think that can either be incredibly overwhelming, or you can meet somebody who's like, this is how I do it, and I'm not going to change how I do it. And I think you are an alternate option of like, how do we navigate this space and do this work well? And I think a question I would ask you is like, how have you managed to stay comfortable in a space that is always changing and growing? Because I think sometimes that's just a really uncomfortable place for people to be.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the beauty of it is that it's supposed to be uncomfortable, and you just, I mean, I personally just go with the flow. It's going to be uncomfortable, so I expect to be uncomfortable. And that's how myself and many other creatives learn to adapt to what's sticking in different platforms, algorithms, and what people actually want, what gets leads, and what people like documented. So I think it's meant to be uncomfortable, and I don't think there's any reason in fighting that.
Well, and I think like this is one of the reasons why I'm so glad to have this conversation with you, because like you're also a very clear communicator. And so like I think there is this understanding of like you could be surprised that it's uncomfortable or you could enter into this context knowing full well I am prepared to
Mhm.
be uncomfortable. And so do you feel like that's something you have always been comfortable with, or is that something you've had to grow in?
That's definitely something I've had to grow in. I first started photography and videography with the mindset of, oh, I watched a couple YouTube videos. I'm basically a pro now. I click a button, people give me money. Easiest job in the world. But it's not just click a button. It's, all right, what kind of legal clauses do I need to put in my contracts? How do I talk to people? How am I supposed to engage with a client and their mom throughout a senior photo shoot? How do I not get boring? All of that. Um, I forgot what your question was exactly, but
But
yes,
that
but that.
well, like, and I think like what you're framing is like there's something to learn always. And I think
Mhm,
that if you are willing to be uncomfortable or aware of the fact that there will be some moments of tension, it frees you up to learn those things instead of panicking. Like, I guess what I would describe that as is like you're focused on the external, not the internal. And I think that is, if I can co-opt your answer, like I think that's incredibly insightful, because I think if you're worried about not being uncomfortable, your attention is focused on you instead of like what is happening between this
mhm.
senior and their parent, what is happening between this groom and their best man, what is happening, like, and I'm just gonna, for all of us who do the wedding thing, like the groom and the best man and the brother who wasn't the best man, is a regular reality in a wedding space. Like I don't know if there's a more constant norm in wedding party realities than the tension between the best man and the brother who is not the best man, like
Yeah,
across all time and space, like but you don't have the opportunity to learn that if you're just like, why am I uncomfortable in this space?
right.
And I feel like what we're talking about there is like a literal selflessness.
Mhm, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely more about thinking what the other person needs than what can I gain from this, or why am I feeling uncomfortable, like you said.
That's so important. And like I don't know that I've necessarily connected those things, but like I don't remember who it was that talked about you know, being selfless isn't thinking less of yourself, it's thinking about yourself less.
Mhm.
And I do
Mm.
think like there is an element of this in that mentoring space where like I am probably not learning a lot if I'm so fixated on how I'm showing up or how I am feeling. Where if I can actually just be comfortable with myself and know that I don't know everything, I can enter that space thinking of myself less, like not giving it the mental space.
And of course, it's not thinking about yourself at all.
Right.
It's having that healthy balance of, okay, what am I doing practically, and how can I improve, but not let my shortcomings get in the way of my progress.
Well, I think like if the goal is continual improvement, then the goal is continual learning.
Mhm.
And you can't probably improve doing the same things the same way in the same place over time.
Of
Like at
course
a
not.
certain like and you might for a while, but at a certain point you've peaked on like what this context has to show you. And so I think a question I would ask you, and I'd like to probably use the podcast thing as an example here.
Mhm.
Um, are there moments you're still nervous?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Um, yeah, short answer, yes. I I wouldn't say nervous. I would say uncomfortable
Yeah.
and a little stressed about it.
Okay.
Because performance for me is a really big deal. I don't like to feel like I'm letting other people down,
Hmm.
but at the same time, I mean, sorry, not but spurring off of that, I like to uh, use that kind of as my power instead of a crutch, where I want to deliver the best I can,
Yeah.
which at times can be a little bit stressful. Like today, I was just finishing up a thumbnail for the podcast and getting a title, and I was talking with my boss about how, like, what are we supposed to do? What's going to get the most clicks? Even though that's not entirely our goal with the show, I wanted to create what would be the best, and I was just in my head about it, and then I just made something and it was all okay.
And so I think my question would be, what do you do when you're in that moment of discomfort and you're like, what do you tell yourself? Like, how do you tell yourself it's going to be okay?
I don't really just tell myself it's going to be okay. I silently suck it up and do it. That's probably not a
Uh-huh.
good but yeah, I mean, in the back of my mind there is this voice of, all right, they're not expecting perfect. They're expecting good. I can do good, but they're not expecting Hollywood movie poster for Project
Yeah.
Hail Mary type of thing.
Yeah. And so I think like what that is like it's a level set, right? Like it is the ability to say, like, you are calming yourself down. You are saying to yourself, like, think about the times I tell Patrick, like, actually, nobody expects this
Mhm.
whatever reel to look like Christopher Nolan made it. Like, I just, and I
Yeah.
love that that is where your standard is. But realistically, that is actually not the scope of work.
Mhm.
And I think that's important. Like, I think it is like what are the things that how do we self-soothe probably about like the situations we find ourselves in?
Mhm.
Okay. So you've spent a lot of time observing things, dynamics, relationships, reading the room. How have your instincts developed, and how have you turned watching those things into something that actually has impacted how you do your work? I think sometimes people are saying, I haven't learned how to do this thing, but I think sometimes you're in these contexts where your learning is a perception function of what's going on around you.
Mhm. Do you mind rephrasing that question for me, please?
Yeah, like when you think about all the rooms you've been in and all the things you've gotten a chance to see, how do you convert that into your instinct or your knowledge and understanding?
How do I convert what I've learned from being in situations to what I do now?
Yep.
I hate to say this, but it's kind of like what's worked for me is kind of like a fake it till you make it sort of mentality. Um, to where as long as I pretend I know what I'm doing, people seem to be comfortable with that. And yeah, a lot of what I do is making people feel comfortable. So that's worked in a lot of ways.
Well, and I think like, I think fake it till you make it gets some shade, but I
Mhm.
think in reality, how else do you navigate that space,
Right.
right? Like you don't know what's going to happen.
You
You don't
can't
always
practice
know what you've signed up for.
that. And also going in without expectations. If you know that you can't uh, prepare for all these constantly changing variables in a setting, how are you supposed to know what's going to happen? So are you just go in expecting the worst and make it the best you can?
So like in that space, I think about your demeanor. Like your demeanor is very calm, very like you have a still presence for somebody who can like actually run very fast and do a million things at one time, but like you have this demeanor that like I think people feel like they could ask you something, they could hand something off to you. Is that like who you are as a person, or is that a learned skill? And if it is a learned skill, which I kind of secretly hope you're going to tell me like, yeah, I've gotten better at it, because I think helping people understand that like fake it till you make it isn't showing up and pretending to touch a million things you don't know how to touch. And so I do want you to walk me through when you're walking into a space for the first time and you might be faking it till you make it. How do you determine your demeanor in that space?
Well, I would like to start off by saying it's not a learned skill for me. I'm sorry. But
Fine, Caden.
podcast over. No, that's just kind of who I am in a lot of ways. Um, Honestly, I didn't even realize it very well until I actually started working in this field. But I mean, yeah, it's who I am in a lot of ways.
I love that about you. And I wish, like, I guess I wish everyone who's listening to this could picture any of the random rooms we have found ourselves in where like you can make eye contact with Caden and be like, and like he will figure it out. And he will move in a way that like causes no alarm, draws no attention. And I think that is like I am going to call out. I think that is important to identify in the faking it till you make it. Whether you are born with this skill or need
Mhm,
to figure out how to develop it, faking it till you make it fails when it is wholly performative. Like
for
faking
sure.
it till you make it doesn't mean you walk into a room and you pretend like you are the producer of something you're not producing. Like it doesn't mean when someone says, "Here, can you do this?" You might need to know how long your runway is till you need to deliver on that thing. Like, are we on stage right now and I need to do something in real time, or can I, do I have 5 minutes to Google something on my phone or text somebody? Um, that faking it till you make it comes with a like steady, comprehensive awareness of the risk you might be taking on.
hmm Exactly. And it's to add on to that, I would say that it's also fake it till you make it's not try to be the best at everything that you are not. It's assuming the role that you've been hired to do, and doing that to the best of your ability. If you only know three buttons on your camera, great. Get to know those three buttons the best you can, and then absolutely master the heck out of them and deliver like crazy.
Well, and I think that's such an important follow-up to fake it till you make it. Like I introduced you and I talked about the certifications and the licensing. Like you're not faking it till you make it at home. You're faking it till you make it in the moment where you're on that space and you need to do something. And then you are going home and you are committing to memory or researching further or going out and doing practice work so that like I think that's the point of faking it till
Mhm.
you make it. Like
Exactly.
that you are committed to. Like I love when it's some random Saturday and you're like, here's what I'm doing and here's what I am. And I'm like, yeah, of course that's what you're doing. Because I think there is this like Caden didn't look at an industry and say, I'm gonna fake it till I make it.
No.
Caden got himself in positions where he could do that and then came back and learned how to do that and more. Which I think is the other thing that builds credibility when you're working with people or building a brand. You know so much more now than the first time we worked together.
Mhm.
And I think about, I mean, honestly, when I think early into your relationship, like with our family, when Patrick wanted to keep talking to me about camera specs, and I thought I was going to die. And then Caden appeared. And like, oh, thank God for Caden. It's like, Patrick, please talk to Caden about that. And like the things that both of you have learned and having someone to talk to. And so I think that's another part I'd want you to talk about too, is like, how do you kind of build and maintain relationships with people so that you get to learn with them as they grow and as you grow?
That's a really good question. I have no idea, to put it bluntly. God has put people in my life and put me in situations that I never, ever would have thought I would be in. I would never thought I would meet the people who I've met, i.e., Bethany Hardwig, Patrick Hardwig, Evelyn Hardwig. Um, but what I can say is, I mean, just being a friend goes a long way. Being a just someone for someone else to talk to is a lot more valuable than people give credit for, and not treating relationships in a sort of transactional way. It's a really big deal. So, I mean, I think the ways I've been able to maintain relationships is just being friendly, helping wherever I can, not expecting anything in return, and just enjoying my friends.
Well, and I think like that's kind of I'm appreciating this emergent trend of like Caden didn't try to be anybody. Caden didn't pretend to be anybody. Caden thought about himself less and others more, and thought about who he was showing up, how he was showing up for people and in relationships. And I think that is like it's such actionable wisdom, because like you didn't say I went to this networking event and I found the 5 people who I googled and had the highest net worth, and then I
Right.
followed them around,
No,
and
that's
I
totally
pretended to be really good at something that I don't know how to do. Like that is so not what you're saying. What you're saying is like I was a friend to people, and those people were people I continued to build with, and like I think that creates this idea that like someone else can do that. Like you can
Mhm.
show up in the spaces you are in and be helpful and friendly, and things will happen.
Yeah, whether you want them to or not.
That's a really important caveat, actually. And I think, like, honestly, like if you're not looking for opportunities, there is a way to reverse engineer that math. But I think that's part of what is so successful is like it's not like a sales ploy, right? Like who do you want to be and how do you want people to think about you, and then live your life that way. It's not rocket science.
It's not rocket science at all. It's basic human function.
Well, I love that. Okay. So, from your perspective, how and like I think one of the things that's so cool, and this, I like that I started to ask a question and then interrupted myself. I think one of the things that's cool about mentorship is like how are you mentoring others? How are you being mentored? And I think one of the things that's cool about all things media is like there are always people getting into it. And so how do you decide if you're going to mentor somebody? How do you decide who that person is, and where do you find those opportunities and people?
Those people and opportunities, I kind of touched on this earlier, but they tend to find me. And I mean, it's not all out of my control. Of course, I do like take James, for example, this buddy of mine under my wing. But things that I look for are you actually interested in being dedicated to this? Are you going to do what you can to learn it inside and out? And biggest thing, are you willing to learn? Are you going to have questions? Are you willing to get answers? Do you want hard criticism? So really, I look for what I've experienced being mentored by your husband, and I take that and I go, okay, how can I be Patrick to James? How
Hmm.
can I share my knowledge and bring this person into opportunities that they wouldn't have been in otherwise?
Yeah. That's like the best answer. And I love that you hit on a recurring theme in the mentorship conversation specifically is curiosity and questions.
Mm.
And so I think the other encouragement I would give anyone listening is like ask the question. Like like if across the mentorship loop, someone having questions is like a huge recurring theme of like, are you actually interested in this, or are you just actually like taking up space in this space?
Exactly. Mhm.
And like it's not that taking up space is wrong. It just means you can't really be surprised when you're not pursuing further information or connection and then it doesn't present itself.
That's totally right. I can't.
When you go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Nope.
Nope. I was just
No.
going to say, uh, building off of kind of converging what you were just saying and what I said before, I can't make you curious. I can help answer some things that will hopefully lead to you wanting to know more, but I can't do everything for you. You have to, you have to have some drive yourself. You have to want it.
Well, and I love that, like, that is equitable. I didn't say you had to be a genius. I didn't say your net worth had to be blank. I said you had to be curious. You had to
Mhm.
want it. And
Exactly.
like, I think there is a level of what I think is often perceived as brave. Like Caden went up and talked to this person, and I couldn't ever be brave enough to do that. And I'm like, you're still talking about yourself though, because maybe Caden was just really curious about what someone was doing. And that, like, I think curiosity and that question asking, we get in our way on that too. Like, how is someone going to think about me? How do I impress this person? Like, I don't like I don't think that that's the motive. I think the motive is, do you really have an interest in this thing? Because most people I know who are passionate about the work that they do love to talk about it. No matter who they are, no matter how important or famous or they are, if they're doing something that they've chosen to spend their time doing, 9 times out of 10 they care about it, and people love to talk about the things that they care about. And so I
Yes.
think we do have to remove that fear of, like, can I ask a question? Like,
Ask the question.
ask the question. I one thing that I tend to know about people who I respect in the work that they do is they do care about it.
Mhm.
And we love to talk about the things that we care about.
Yes, we do.
How do you, I think this is a thing that exists in creative spaces. When your work is creative,
Mhm.
how do you hold on to, like, the fun parts of it when you also utilize that work to pay your bills?
Mm. It's a really good question. I might need a second to think
Yeah,
on that.
thank you.
Maybe I just haven't experienced that yet, or I don't know. I think part of it is I'm in a new situation. I'm in a new place so often. The dopamine from being a photographer and taking videos of people hasn't quite worn off yet.
Yeah,
So I don't see it as I have to do this in order to pay rent. I see it as I get to do this and they happen to give me money. That's crazy. So I think it's definitely mostly a mindset
yeah,
attitude where your heart's at in what you're doing. You can't keep doing what you're doing forever if you don't love it. And you also can't keep doing what you're doing forever if you can't make it sustainable. But I mean, those two go hand in hand a
yeah.
lot of the time, I think. If you love it, you'll keep pursuing it and it'll, Lord willing, keep growing and growing.
Well, and I think, like, love is such an interesting thing in this, like, there's something generous about the concept of love. Like, I think about overflow and that, like, when I love something, I'm excited to get up in the morning and do it. When I love something, I'm willing to stay up late and finish it or travel the most obnoxious hours ever. Like, when you love something, I think love carries with it not just generosity, but a willingness to, like, suffer a little bit. Like,
Self-sacrifice.
uh, this is something I'm willing to lose sleep for. This is something I'm willing to miss this opportunity for.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think that's an interesting kind of way to look at the work that you do. Uh, I like that. I like that. Okay, so have you experienced a moment where feedback or correction felt difficult in the moment? And how do you manage that in the moment? And how do you take that and grow?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So this is going back to high school, early mentorship days. This is my first time actually working with Patrick. Assume everyone on this show
I
knows
yap about him a
Patrick
lot.
very
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Good person to yap about. So we were in Florida. We were shooting this conference for a youth group, youth conference organization, and he basically just handed the reins over to me. What we needed to do was go out, shoot as much video as possible, and then edit a video before the end of the night. And he just handed that to me. And I was like, all right, boss, I'll make you proud. Sure. So I sat in a dark little room, typed away on my computer, made a video. I thought it was really cool, but I completely missed the scope of what a recap video of that day was supposed to be. And Patrick told me that. He came up to me and said, "Hey, just have some criticism for you. Are you ready?" I said, "Yeah, sure, I guess." And he said, "Okay, so these kids come here to see themselves on a screen." And then it started clicking. I was like, okay. I see where I went wrong. And then he kept talking, as Patrick does. He's like, all right, so with that knowledge, we want most of the footage to be what's going on, not in terms of things, but people enjoying themselves, enjoying each other, enjoying the environment. And then that spurred into 2 more summers of me going around doing this thing and being able to execute it well, because I had that criticism that hurt at first, but in the long term, I just took it for how it was meant to be received and grew from the lessons I learned.
Well, and like I think um that's a great example. Thank you. Because I think there is this like it can be a really great video and
Mhm.
not be necessarily what we were thinking or he was thinking or
For sure.
what the camp or attendees were thinking. And sometimes we get feedback like that from somebody who doesn't love us.
Mhm.
And so I think a question I would ask you is like, how do we take that feedback and take the positive of it without overly dwelling on someone didn't like what I did? Or how do we not overly internalize that? Because I think if we can figure out a way to make feedback something that fuels us forward, not holds us back or like kind of occupies our thought or internal monologue, like that would be a huge thing to help someone unlock. So what advice do you have there?
It definitely goes back to focusing less on yourself. If this person so what you need to keep in mind is, when most of the time when criticism is given to you, it's given to you by someone who has the same goal in mind as you. They want to make something that tells their story effectively and accurately. And once you step out of your own headspace of, okay, this is all about me, this is all about uh, the work that I can do, and take a little bit of their life experience and their knowledge, 9 times out of 10, person you're working with who's in the industry that they want something created for knows more than you.
Yeah.
So it really just comes to stepping off of your soapbox and letting them coach you in a way, and you yourself being willing to learn and not have your feelings hurt. It's all right if you have your feelings hurt a little, but not making that all of the experience, the conversation, I should say.
And like this is going to be the next time that I say like your answers are so consistent no matter what we're talking about. And I think that that creates such a helpful conversation for others to hear, because what we're talking about is like, again, like, are you able to hear it? Are you able to acknowledge that you are a student in this space? And if you can be a student in this space, that is not demeaning.
Mm-mm.
That is not, it's not putting yourself down at all. Like a student's desire is to learn and grow. And so if it like what environment is requisite for that student to succeed is to be able to be taught.
Exactly.
And so I think like I love how you framed that, because again, like all we're really saying is like you are maybe not the most important person in this conversation. And like can you put yourself over here for a second to learn and grow and become better, and just simply take this as a tangible, actionable help to improve.
Yes. Yeah, I really like what you said. You're not the most important person in this conversation. You're not.
And like, if you can not be the most important person in that conversation, there is so much you can get out of that conversation.
Exactly.
Like, we are selling ourselves short. And like, I like that you're like, get off your soapbox. And I'm like, and I'm going to get promptly on mine. And saying like, I think that this is the reason why Real Talk exists, is because we have to be able to have real human conversations about the real world.
Yes.
Because 9 times out of 10, whatever video you're scrolling past on social media is telling you that you are the most important, most special person that has ever existed ever, and you will never do anything wrong. And like, don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Like, that is a framework that's going to kill you.
Yes.
And every answer you've provided up until this point creates this consistent narrative of like how good your life can be if you simply don't have to be the most important person in the room.
Exactly.
Caden, I have a lot of feelings about that. Because like I mean, from being able to go up to someone and start a conversation, or how do you help, or how do you learn, or how do you take this step of being in a space that you might not feel the most comfortable in, and like, you know, obviously my hill to die on is students and higher ed always. But what I love about that is a space that is normatively about your growth, and your growth means being able to say, I don't know everything and I don't have all the answers, and to not be like criticized for like, why not? Like,
Yeah.
profound.
Very profound what you've said as well.
I just appreciate your consistency in this conversation, and also always. So question.
Answer.
I was like, I hope this is a learned process so you can tell us how you've learned. And you're like, joke's on you. This is who I am as a person. But there is clearly from you a willingness to try, to grow, to be stretched. If you are talking to someone who isn't you, and maybe wasn't just born this way, but is saying, I have this opportunity, or I'm trying to get better at something, or I'm trying to learn something, but it's going to require me to like grow, stretch. What advice or encouragement would you share with someone that says, hey, it might be worth it?
You're saying, what advice would I give someone
Yep.
to encourage them to want to learn?
Yep. And be like, not, I think sometimes wanting to learn sounds positive. People are like, oh, I do want to learn. That means you're going to be stretched. That means you're going to be uncomfortable. Like, oh, I don't know about that. So if someone was really saying like, I have this opportunity, but I am going to be pushed out of my comfort zone, or I am going to be stretched, what encouragement or advice would you give them in that context?
Yeah. I would just say, do it. Famous Nike slogan. Love it. I feel like I don't have a good answer for this, but I'm just going to yap and see what sticks. I would just say, don't expect it to all be perfect. Don't expect everything to go how you want it to, but instead walk into an experience or an environment expecting it how you don't want it to go. And if you take that sort of pessimistic stance, which a lot of the time is what I do, then I mean it's all uphill from there. So all you can do then is just learn from what's happening, observe the environment around you, and see what's going on. Yeah, but the big thing I would just say to someone who wants to not necessarily wants to, how I would encourage someone to be stretched is just tell them it's going to hurt.
Yeah. Well, and I think like, this is what I want you to do. I do want you to yap and see what sticks, because like even hearing how you like process that is incredibly helpful, not just to me, but to other people, because you're not saying like, this is going to be so fun. Go into it with the highest of expectations and it's going to go well. Like, we're talking about
well.
It could. But we had a friend in Florida who used to say all the time, your expectations are premeditated disappointments. And I feel like what you're talking about is like how to make sure they're not. Like, you're not walking into this saying, I am going to have the best time. I know exactly what my schedule is going to look like. I'm going to be fed and have water every time I need it, even though this is a conference in this Central Florida in July. Like, there, you know, I think if you come into this with some realistic expectations of, maybe my goal is survival. Maybe my goal is to do this hard thing and survive.
Yes.
Well, I love that because I do think like there is, and like this is my second rant about real talk and what it is supposed to do. Life isn't an Instagram reel.
Unfortunately not.
Not every single second can be like scintillating and built for your comfort. That is
Mhm,
not real. And so I do think like in this, like the whole point of these conversations is reality, not virality. They're like, that's why it's not a podcast
mm,
and not on podcast sites, even though you'd like it to be, but you're not here to produce mine. So that's fine. We have to start having louder or more persistent conversations about the world we live
mhm,
in. Not every moment is comfortable. Maybe the goal is survival. Maybe you are not going to be on the Forbes under 40 list because you did this thing. Like, that's okay. What did you learn? And what did you learn about yourself? Even your ability to survive something that
mhm.
maybe you weren't sure you could do is its own value.
Absolutely. I couldn't have worded that better if I tried.
I want you to tell me about something you've done, and you don't have to tell us specifically what it is,
Mhm,
but I would love to know when you take on something new, and that could be a conference, a convention, a new client, a new kind of project. How do you assess its value to you? Because I think that's another part of this conversation. Like, as you learn to maybe put yourself second in a conversation and approach with openness or curiosity and seeing what doors open for you and learning how to step out of your comfort zone and take on a new opportunity, I do think there's this part of time where, like, okay, you've done it. Maybe it went well, maybe it didn't. Maybe you've learned something, maybe you haven't. And that invite comes again, or you get kind of the next opportunity. How do you assess if that's something you're taking on again? How do you really think through the benefit of that? And can you help talk us through that some?
absolutely. I would say if you go into anything expecting to learn, not expecting to learn, but expecting to overcome difficult challenges, it's a good way of putting it. I'll mark that down for later. Um, then things seemingly just fall into place even if everything is in chaos.
Mhm.
Um, tangibly, is that the right word? No, it's not. I would say I used to be very scared of weddings. I used to be like the thought of shooting a wedding myself just did not exist. Um, that was until I got hired on by a mentor of mine to second shoot a wedding, and then they asked me back to do another one, and then Patrick asked me to do one, and then I eventually felt like, okay, I've been in these situations enough. Not only do I have photos to prove that I can do good work, I can show people that this is what I do, but I've experienced enough to know that if something doesn't happen exactly how it's supposed to, or if I'm thrown a curveball by the bride's mom, then I can adapt. I can help make that person or those people feel comfortable. So it's not the value doesn't lie in what you get out of the experience. It's what you can add to the experience to elevate other people's enjoyment, not enjoyment, but experience. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. I love that. Caden, yes. Yes. And like I think that there is this like and even again modeling wisdom, like you didn't just say like, yeah, I can shoot your wedding. You went along with somebody. And then I think even your reflection of like I've taken stock of the photos I have captured, edited, delivered, and know that I stand behind the value I'm adding.
Mhm,
And so I think what you're talking about is two different things. Like you're talking about the opportunity to put yourself in a position to learn and experience the reality of the situation. Let's start there. And then second, you're talking about like really assessing what you contributed. And I think you didn't necessarily say this, but I would add like, and you can enjoy it. Like we know people who don't photograph weddings because they can't handle any number of the things that a wedding day brings about. And like
Yeah.
those of us who've done it, we understand the people who don't do it. Like if this
Mhm.
is not your thing, just own that. But like you are able to learn, grow, assess. And I think like all three of those steps matter. You learned, you grew, you assessed. And I think like the assessment is a really important part of that. Like you have to be able to assess your work. And I think that's hard too. So I think I would like to pause there and say, like, so how, like, I think there is, between the concept of imposter syndrome or the amount of people who do something like wedding photography and the amount of different ways there are to do it, how do you grow in your ability to trust your own assessment of your work?
Mhm. I think I mirror a lot of what I see, in terms of people. So when I was second shooting those weddings, I wasn't paying too much attention as to what I was doing because I didn't know what to do. I had done conferences, I've never shot a wedding before, but I was working with someone more experienced. So I was looking to them, seeing what they were doing, how they were interacting with guests, how they were interacting with the bridal party, and even outside of weddings with Patrick, how he interacts with people. I still don't know how to do that, but I can try to mirror some of the things that he does. I can try to do some of the things that the primary photographer of this wedding is doing.
Yeah.
And maybe in trying to do that, I can get a little bit better and better at correcting my own mistakes, at learning what I'm not good at yet, and uh, seeing how I can provide value to someone else.
And I think like I did an interview with my friend Ty a week or so ago where he talked about like I'm really good at learning from other people. And so I do think there is an acknowledgement that like it's probably worth taking the time to assess for yourself, putting yourself in positions to learn or
Mhm.
even watch other people or assess like are you somebody who understands that you can learn from watching other people? Because I do think you've talked about that really normally, like really clearly. And I do think that like sometimes one of the problems with how we've kind of formalized and hyper structured education is like I'm not in a classroom and I don't have a textbook and there isn't a teacher and so I don't know what to do right now. And so I think we do have to like I'm going to say some really outlandish things. Emancipate our own understanding of education.
Mhm.
That education is happening around you if you can take the time to learn and observe because people are doing things around you all the time that we don't necessarily know how to do. And so I think this is like you are a very observant person. And I'm confident you would say, yes, Bethany, that is the way that I am. But I want you to think about helping someone understand your ability to observe and then act.
Mm.
Um, as though you were kind of teaching them how to do it. Like if you want to use, for example, SOCAP, you're at a conference with Patrick, there's people all around you. Um, can you kind of walk us through a scene or a situation, what you saw, what you learned, and then what that changed for you? And it can be as simple as even an instruction in the day. But I
Mhm.
think I think if you can try to walk us through that, it'd be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's think of a moment. So, SOCAP, the conference center that they used in the past, has this not quite a hallway. It's a really long room, with great big windows. Patrick was doing some photos in there, getting wide shots of the rooms, and I was following him around, kind of shadowing him because first day didn't quite know what to do yet. So I was just watching him, and the I was noticing how he, I'm not saying like he's Batman or anything, but he kind of like stepped out of the shadows with a brand new lens on and went up to someone and said, "Hey, y'all look really nice today. Can I take your photo?" We're the photographers here at SoCap. How does it sound? And I was watching him have this interaction with these people, and I was like, man, he just finessed that in a way I could never imagine. And so seeing, I guess how I would put this is observe, don't, not necessarily everything about a person, but focus on one thing. And the thing that I focused on in this case is Patrick's mannerisms and how the we'll just call them subjects, the
Mhm.
subjects in the photo,
Yeah.
how they reacted to them, whether it was positive or negative. And I could see, based on the positive reactions that he was having, I could kind of chameleon with my own
Mhm.
sort of flair what he was doing
Yeah.
later on, not only to make these people feel comfortable, but to make the photo look good and to, I mean, those two kind of go hand in hand. But
You said, and this is why I asked, and this is why you're on this conversation series, because you said something so incredibly important, which is in my own way.
mm,
You're not Patrick.
no.
I'm not Patrick. Um, so I think there is this understanding that when you are watching people, when you are learning and then practicing and growing, you're also translating to like how would I do that? How would I start that conversation?
Mhm,
And so I think I love how you did exactly what I wanted you to do. Thank you. And helping kind of create this idea of like, so I'm here, someone's doing this. How do I kind of bridge that gap from like I'm present to I'm observing to I'm trying and I think there is this ability to like I used to have a boss that said we don't know what we don't know.
mm,
And I added to that if we don't know what we don't know, then we know we're going to make mistakes.
mhm,
And like I come back to like your first, not going to be perfect at this and like that has to be okay. And so like you try it and you realize okay that's a stumble point that maybe that's not what I wanted to say and then you try it again and try it again and like I think about because I kind of threw some shade at a traditional classroom context. But I think about like a student learning how to write. You have those bigger lines with the dashes in the middle, and your letters are really big at first, and they're
mhm,
kind of warbly, and maybe you don't know where to start and stop and pick up your pen. None of us are great at something the first time we try it, even naturals. And like I would put your Michael Jordans in that conversation of the people who who are the best at things are people who are also very clear about how hard they work.
mm.
And so I think again, like everything you've said is so consistent in this, like, can you grow and can you improve and can you watch and learn and try again? There is so much actionable wisdom there that is so tangibly helpful. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, I have like two more questions in like 3 minutes, so I'm going to be fast.
Ah,
Yeah. Okay, so you've seen the outcome and the process of a lot of things.
yes.
uh the finished product and the long hours behind it. How has that shaped your understanding of what it means to build something meaningful?
Can you rephrase the question for me, please?
Yeah, like when you think about things that you've strived to become better at,
Mhm,
how do you do how do you assess the meaning in what you're building? Or like how do you even value or quantify the effort or investment that has taken place? Like, and I think you've talked a little bit about like assessing your work.
mhm,
But like you've done some really considerable things. You've built some meaningful things, you've built some lasting things. How do you I think one of the things that can be hard in these creative spaces or in spaces where you're working for yourself, how do you kind of step back and say, yeah, that's meaningful. I did that. And that like I because I think that's an important part of this process and this conversation is the ability to value your own work
mhm.
and assess how much investment of your own time, energy, and effort went into making this thing?
right. Maybe it's unhealthy, but a lot of the time what I do is I deliver the thing, I finish the project, and I wait for the client's feedback on it, or I wait to see how they're using it. I wait to see how it's actually valuable to them in practice rather than just something on paper. Um, I don't really know. So your question is how do I assess the value in what I'm doing for other people?
Yeah, and like I think you said something really important, like how a client uses something, their feedback. What if you don't get a ton of feedback? Like
Mm,
what if, how do you rationalize or justify or encourage yourself in the work when the days are hard? Like because I think that in this space where you are the brand, you're the person people say yes to, and you're the person that people say no to. You're the person who people pay and they decide are not in their investment range.
yep.
Like there are days when you're like, I don't know if anything is hitting, or like, how do you step back and kind of assess your body of work or your investment and say, I feel really good about what I'm doing?
Mhm. Yeah, it definitely comes back to what I've done before, what I've learned. Did I learn how to make someone smile in a photo, or did I learn how to walk really fast from one side of the room to the other? Um, it definitely, I don't know. I get caught up a lot in the how I'm supposed to, or the actual value of what I'm doing, and I lose sight of what it is that I and the other person gained from this, which I guess would be the value. But um man, I'm having a really hard time with this.
No, I think what you're saying is like, how do you find your other ways when there isn't feedback? How do you build other ways of saying, I did learn this thing? And I think I'm laughing really hard about how do you quickly get from one side of the room to the other, quietly or steadily while holding a camera. And like what I hear you processing is you have to find your other wins.
Mhm.
Because I think as long as you learned something, you didn't lose.
Mm,
And so even if there isn't the feedback that maybe you were looking for or the utilization, I mean, I think I can think of clients I have had, I can think of clients Patrick has had where we've delivered a whole lot of work and then they actually decided to pivot careers.
yeah.
And so they didn't utilize something we provided in the way that we thought that they would. And so I think it would be easy to look at that and say, well, what was the point?
Mhm.
Or I didn't win here. And so I think what you're talking about is an idea of making your scoreboard bigger. The wins cannot just be client utilization or invoice paid. What you're talking about is skills learned,
Mhm.
relationships gained. What you're saying is actually hugely profound, assuming I'm not misunderstanding you. Because I think it's easy to say that this is the scoreboard, and the scoreboard is either utilization and visibility or income,
Mhm.
and that maybe the scoreboard is bigger than that. And
Absolutely.
how do you quantify the value you've gained apart from those things?
Mhm. This all goes back to it's not about you. It's what the other person decides to do with, or uh, decides to respond or not respond, is not necessarily. Of course, there are a lot of use cases where you could have delivered something awful and they told you they hated it.
In which
But
case, maybe it is a little bit about you.
maybe it is. But if you did something, you're really proud of it, and you get no response from the client, it's I don't think that should be taken as you did something wrong. I like to see it from different avenues, like you were saying. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they didn't respond to the email because they didn't want to. Whoa, crazy idea. Or, um, yeah, absolutely. Just, man, I lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry.
You're fine.
Let's see. Where was I going with this, Bethany?
You were talking about it's not about you. And so like I think if I had to just close the loop on that, like we over internalize feedback.
Mhm.
And that the strength is not over internalizing that feedback.
Yes.
Is what I would say. Okay, last thing I want to say before I let you go is if somebody is like on the verge of maybe I try this thing, maybe I start this conversation, what push would you give them to just try it?
I guess it's not enough to say just try it. I need a second on this one.
Yep.
I would probably say just try it, but don't expect, I guess this is a good recap for the whole conversation that we had. Don't expect everything to go your way or even go well. Expect to grow. And if let's say I'm Jimmy Joe, never I've never done X thing before. I want to do X thing, but I'm a little hesitant. I would maybe do a little bit of research about X thing, and with that knowledge, try this with the mindset of I'm going to make mistakes, I'm going to fail, but I'm going to make a strong effort to learn from what I'm not doing incorrectly, or uh, take that further to seek out what I don't know and then apply that to the next time I go after it.
There are going to be other things that I want to talk to you about in the future. So just like put a pin in your calendar permanently forever.
Right.
Because I think one of the things you've done so helpfully in this conversation is provide like the scaffolding for what I feel like gets the big quote on Instagram. Like, just do it. But you're in control of your expectations. And that is where just do it becomes something that is like sustainable and doable and actionable and encouraging. Because I didn't say just do it and it was going to go great.
No.
I said just do it with the hope that you grow. And the thing that's fascinating about growth is we're in control of that. I'm not in control of what's happening in this room. I am in control of how I internalize what happens. And so I want to thank you for having a really well-built framework for the things that you do, because it provided this like consistent recurring, it's not about you idea that I think is pretty countercultural and also real. And like the example I would give is we took Evelyn out when she was like 8 days old because we had a pastor that was leaving. And a mom, I had like all these moms like, oh my God, she's so cute, blah, 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 blah. I was like, yeah, she is. It's great. And one mom was like, is she sleeping? And I was like, she is right now. And they're like, that will end and she will start to cry. And these other moms like, that is a terrible thing to tell. But it was the most helpful advice I was given because it was true.
Mm.
And so when she did stop sleeping and she did start crying, I was like, Margie said this was going to happen. And like what you have done is create that, like, it's okay. Like Caden said, like Caden, who is successful and does all of these things, said, it might not go great. I knew this might happen. And so I want to thank you for the way that you live your life, but also the way you communicated throughout this conversation, because I think it is precisely the point of these conversations, and saying this is a real person who has really done this. And what real advice do they have for me? And so I just thank you so much for your time and the work that you do and how you do it. Because I think this is a really encouraging, like, you can buy this beautiful quote book that tells you everything's going to be fine. But also listen to this conversation after you read the book. Because I think this is just like, no matter what the thing is that you might have the opportunity to do, the advice holds true. And so thank you for giving this time. I was going to say Saturday. It's definitely Friday. Thank you for giving us time on your Friday. It means the world to me.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on with this conversation with you.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Tell your wife I said hi.
Absolutely.
Bye, friend.
Bye, friend.